It's preseason, and I'm not freaking out.
I'm not worried about Cade Cunningham. He is going to be fine. Jaden Ivey looked good.
A lot of good defensive moments from Jaden Ivey.
They actually looked pretty good in the first half. Killian Hayes and Corey Joseph looked like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
The Pistons are going to be about learning this year.
Hopefully, Dwayne KC says, all right, let's not switch everything. That's probably not a good idea.
Next year's the big jump, not this year.
First on the docket, the Detroit Pistons last night played a preseason game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City missing their prize jewel in Chet Holmgren, their top 3 draft pick in Chet Holmgren, who is out for the season with a Liz Frank injury, but they still went out there and got the job done against the Detroit Pistons. Easy, what were your takeaways
SGA was out
game?
Too, right?
Yes, SGA was not playing as well.
Yeah.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
I didn't get to watch the whole game because I was doing the clip for the IG and I had to get, make the drive home. But from a little bit that I did get to watch, first and foremost, I was disappointed because by that time we were getting our asses whooped. It also sucked too that, and it's preseason, and I'm not freaking out because it seems as Casey's doing the preseason. It's like a 5-for-5 swap every time there's a sub, and like towards the end of the games, we're not even seeing the starters out there. We saw a lot of good defensive moments from Jaden Ivey, some impressive stuff out there. Some issue, Cade shooting, and that was more so box score. I didn't get to actually, again, I didn't watch the first half of the game, so I could have no takeaways on that one. But the defensive scheme, the switching, if you will, becoming a big concern for me. Sus, what about you?
Well, for me, it just comes down to one thing, and this is why I've been so slightly over and not going to 35 or even 32, 34 wins for the Pistons this season. And that is because the 3 people who will handle the ball 90% of the time for the Pistons are all young guards. And what is the rule if you want to lose basketball games in the NBA is have young guards. And the 3 people who will be handling the ball the most, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Killian Hayes, are all young guards. And Killian Hayes is the best playmaker of them, the one I trust the most, but obviously with his limited skill set, he's not going to be touching the ball the most. So the Pistons are going to have a lot of turnovers. You saw that with OKC, and OKC had that as well. When you look at there was that stretch where it was like 6-7 turnovers just back to back to back. Nobody could even score anything in the third quarter at the start of it because they were just turning the ball over, and that's another young team. So that is a sign of young teams. And that is what the Pistons will do. Now, obviously, it will clean up as the season goes on, but I expect the Pistons to be one of the lead leaguers in turnovers, and I think that that's going to be something that's going to be difficult for this roster that's talented, but not the most talented to overcome giving up free possessions, which is why next year's the big jump, not this year. I'm excited for this year, but next year's the big jump.
Yeah, I think the Pistons will be a weak leader in turnovers because I think, like you said, they have a lot of young guards to deal with. They actually looked pretty good in the first half. The Pistons were up, they were playing well, they were buzzing, and then to start the third quarter, they legitimately had 5 or 6 turnovers in a row. It was some terrible. Of the worst, 3 minutes. Yeah. Some of the worst 3 minutes of basketball I've ever seen in my entire life.
Who was majority of the blame?
It was Cade, it was Ivy, it was Sadiq. They were all just trying to dribble drive, getting ripped up, throwing sloppy passes on entry passes to bigs. It was terrible. It was really, really bad to watch. But they'll clean it up. I'm not worried about Cade Cunningham. He is going to be fine. Jaden Ivey looked good. Jaden Ivey looked good again. He shows flashes. He's going to improve. He's going to get better. We'll see this improvement through the season for sure. Killian Hayes and Corey Joseph looked like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson in the first half. Those guys were making everything. It was insane. I know. I hate Corey Joseph, but they look good. Killian Hayes finished with 20 points on 4 of 6 from 3 and 7 assists. The guy looked great. He looked comfortable. This preseason, he's looked very aggressive. He's looked very comfortable on the offensive side of the ball. But I saw in the Woodward Sports chat, our guy Pistons Talk, he said we got to stop with the switching. We're not the Celtics. And that's true. If you have an extremely deep, athletic team, if you have multiple guys, 6'7", long arms, positionless guys, then you can switch off everything. If you have a defensive player of the year as the centerpiece of your team, fighting and being a dog at the top of the key, then you can switch off everything. The Pistons don't have that yet. The Pistons still have young, unproven guys who aren't built on defense. So I don't want to see this switch everything. Jalen Duren looks pretty good in switches. Jalen Duren looks like he can play on the perimeter defensively. But I don't want you to switch everything. That is for a team that is defensively sound. That is for a team that has legitimate stalwarts on that defensive side of the ball, and the Pistons just do not have that yet.
Yeah. JB, did you end up making it out to the game last night? I know you were trying to get tickets.
Oh, I was trying to go, but no, I didn't end up making it out there. So I had to, settle for watching it either on my phone or once eventually when I got to the house. I didn't get to see all of the game, but yeah, I do agree. Just to reiterate with you guys, that first half, very solid, very strong. The second half is just where it kind of like fell apart. I don't know exactly what happened, and especially against this Thunder team, which they're nursing for like 4 or 5 injuries right now. I was expecting to win last night, and I will, take it with a grain of salt. It is just preseason, but damn, come on, you guys. The switching, leaving open lanes, just poor communication out on the floor. I mean, I give credit to Killian Hayes and Jalen Duren. They at least had, a solid game. But if we don't clean this up, like, this is going to be a long season, and it's just going to end up in less wins and then more just developing these young, talented players that we have.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not worried about Cade Cunningham not shooting the ball well. I'm not worried about Cade Cunningham starting off the preseason slow. He is Cade Cunningham. He is him. He is Timothy Turner. Him Turner. He's going to go out there. He's going to ball. He is going to be the guy this season. Don't worry. You don't need to worry about Cade Cunningham. He is going to get it right.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm worried about on the defensive side of the ball. I'm just going to keep going back to it because as good as Isaiah Stewart is at protecting the rim and being a hustle guy, like being a cog in that defense where you're switching everything, you need to be so on point. You need to be so in tune. You need to know the habits of your teammates. You need to know your teammates like the back of your hand. And I don't think this team has enough time together or defensive fortitude to be able to pull that off. I don't think this team has enough chemistry on the defensive side of the ball to be able to pull that off. When you have 2 rookies in your starting lineup and you're asking them to switch everything, that is a tough ask. They're getting beat. They're getting beat by the roller. They're not picking it up at the top of the key, and they got abused. It was tough, but it's the preseason. So we need the Aaron Rodgers, RELAX. It's going to be fine. Cade Cunningham's going to be fine. Sadiq Bey is going to be fine. Hopefully Dwayne KC says, all right, let's not switch everything. That's probably not a good idea. And we can use that defense and build off of that. But I really don't want to see them switch everything in the regular season. It's a way to get burned by better, more athletic teams.
Yeah, James Edwards had a good article, great article actually on The Athletic. Make sure you guys check it out, where he actually got to sit down one-on-one with Dwayne Casey and speak about the switching defense that they've been practicing throughout the offseason. And Casey kind of, I know it'd be a hot button take to continue this narrative of oh my God, he's a bad coach. Why are they switching? It's the off season. This is when you practice these things, and that's pretty much what Casey iterated to. You know what I'm saying? This is something we're trying throughout preseason so we can get it down locked in, because there are teams that do use the switching method, as you spoke to earlier. The Boston Celtics, I think Pistons Talk said. I know the Toronto Raptors use that a lot too, but
yeah.
At the core of it, though, you're putting you're trying to stop the 3 ultimately. That way, you're not stopped by, you're not getting picked and popped all the way because you're switching right away off the rip. But in that scenario, you're having your guards having to guard these bigger body guys in the paint. Mm-hmm. Now, Toronto Raptors can do that because they have a Scotty Barnes who's 6'7". You go almost positionless. He kind of plays all across the board. Pascal Siakam,
yeah.
They have those types of bodies that you could do that with. And I do think if we are a younger team, and if we get it right, maybe it worked well for us, because we do have a bigger team if you think about it. Cade's 6'7",
mm-hmm.
Playing between point guard and shooting guard. Then you have Jaden, who 6'4", but at the point guard position, that's a big guard. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately down the road, we're a young team. If we get it together, it can be promising for us. But yes. It looks ugly now, but they're in the learning phase of it. You know what I'm saying? So you were about to say something?
Yeah, and that's exactly it, is that this year is learning. As much as people want us to win, the Pistons are going to be about learning this year and about growing and developing the right habits. And that's what Dwayne Casey is charged with this season, is doing a lot of teaching of these players, the fundamentals, the basics, the principles of defensive switching, of zone defense, of all these things that the Pistons are going to learn. And now is the time to do it. Not next year, not 2 years from now, when they have habits. Do it early while they're still growing and they're still learning their NBA habits, and it's going to set us up for success next season. So I don't mind seeing Dwayne Casey doing radical and crazy things right now, because right now he's just trying to build the foundation for the success of this team later in the future.
Yeah, again, it is the preseason. This is where you try things out. Like you said, the Pistons have the size to be able to do that eventually. When you look at our backcourt, when you look at our front court, they have the size to be able to do that. But when you have two rookies in your starting lineup that don't understand the rotation speed, that don't understand what they need to do in help defense just yet in the NBA, you can get exposed like that. Like when the Raptors go out there with that literally 5-forward lineup of switchable everything, with OG Anunoby, with Precious Achiuwa, with Scotty Barnes, with Pascal Siakam, and whoever else they put out there.
Yeah.
It is something where it doesn't matter who's guarding who. You just completely rotate everything. And so could the Pistons get there eventually? Yes, they have the size to do it, but they don't have the experience in NBA situations doing it just yet.